All right, guys, I wanted to just talk today for a few minutes about body image in the fitness industry in general. I thought it'd be helpful to have Ben here to help chime in and give us some of his thoughts and his perspectives on evolving body image in the fitness industry. Now, I know when I first started out as a professional 8+ years ago, I had it in my head that I had to look perfect or like look the part to be considered a true professional, right? But I think in many ways it backfired on me because the added pressure made me try to be too much of a perfectionist with my own fitness regimen, with my eating, with my exercise and so on, which then contributed to a lot of problematic behaviors, including binge eating, doing way too much cardio than I needed, missing out on my social life and so on. Did you go through the same thing?
Yeah, I remember clients saying to me things like, I came to you because you looked like you were in good shape. And because of that, it kind of perpetuated the idea that I had to look a certain way for clients to seek me out as their trainer. And the funny thing is, when I started in the fitness industry, I wasn't particularly vain. But then when I started working in gyms and people would start saying this and paying attention to how I looked, I found that my kind of obsession with my own body image tended to change.
Yeah, and I think that, at least in the beginning for me, how a lot of people sometimes start out in the fitness industry, whether professionally or as a hobby, is to look towards bodybuilding competitions or like figure, bikini as their start into fitness. And I definitely went that route, the bikini route specifically, and I did that on and off for a few years. And while it was a really fun experience, I learned a lot. I do think in many ways it kind of exacerbated all my already existing body image struggles. And Ben has talked about this before, and I say to him numerous times, competing for him would probably be the worst thing for his mental health.
Yeah, so for me, I liked having photo shoots because for me, a photo shoot was a way of kind of having something to show for all of my efforts. But I didn't like the idea that I would stand on stage and be judged against other people whose physiques I wasn't in control of. So if, for example, I looked the best subjectively that I could look, but I placed low, I've seen a lot of people go into competitions thinking, oh my God, I look amazing, I feel amazing. And then they haven't placed where they've wanted and they've been disheartened. And to
Not
me,
just disheartened, I've seen them throwing tantrums.
Yeah.
Like adults, I just don't think it's a good...
And I think the other thing is like when people go into that very hardcore subculture of fitness where it's like hyper focused on aesthetics, I do think it can exacerbate existing issues. Like a lot of bodybuilding competitions or bodybuilding competitors, people will go through entire phases dedicated to developing their weak points. So I know people that have had entire like mesocycles dedicated to specializing on delts, for example. I need my delts to be a little bit rounder, or I need my hamstring to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And when you're putting that much emphasis on like weak points, I think it's likely that a lot of people will suffer from body image issues.
Yeah. And I think there's this myth out there that, and I definitely fell for it, where I thought once I achieve the perfect body, I will never have any more body image issues and my confidence will be sky high all the time. And what ends up happening a lot of times is you end up kind of going down this rabbit hole where no amount of change to your body is really good enough.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of the preconception is that as your body composition improves, which obviously you've just spoken about, the way you feel about your body will also improve. And I think that is often not the case at all. And in a lot of instances, I think that like hyper focusing on how someone looks can almost have a negative effect on psychology.
Right. So I would say, I think generally speaking, if you're already struggling with body image issues, I don't know that competing is going to be the best avenue for you. Would you say that, do you think dieting itself, like shedding body fat in general, would be inherently harmful?
It's a tricky one because I've had clients who, let's say, for example, someone loses weight and some people do say, I feel a lot better, I feel a lot more confident. But the flip side is I don't think it's sensible to guarantee that and have that expectation of that.
Yeah.
I think that mental health within the fitness industry is important and should often be addressed separately to body composition goals.
The other thing too is the notion that once you have reached your goal physique or you're relatively happy with how you look, that you're never going to have bad body image days or bad body image weeks. But even now, I will say there are days when I'm like, I don't feel very good about my body. But so I want to emphasize that fluctuating body image is completely normal, even in, I guess, people like us, fitness professionals who talk about and educate about body composition things for a living. It's completely normal for your body image to be better on some days and worse on others. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do something about it. So just because you feel something or you make an observation like, oh, when I wear these shorts, my cellulite on the back of my legs looked way more pronounced. That may be so, but I won't necessarily change what I'm doing, right? And this is actually a term called body image flexibility, which is really, really important in overall mental health and quality of life.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've noticed is if I talk about body image, a lot of people will say, but if your body fat is already so low that they can't necessarily relate to what I'm saying, which I think is a very valid thing to voice. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But the flip side is being experienced and being in a position where I've dieted down to extremely low levels of body fat. I think that there is a different value to speaking about body image concerns, because there is often this misconception that when you lose weight or build muscle or whatever your physique goal is, that you will feel happier when you're there. And I just don't think that's the case.
No.
And for me personally, I actually found that my body image was almost worse in some ways when I was pushing myself to that level, because part of that, especially within the sport of bodybuilding and the culture of bodybuilding, part of that comes with being hypercritical of the way you look.
Yeah. So I do think that if you're trying to work on your body image, probably good to focus on non-aesthetics related goals. So instead of looking a certain way or weighing a certain number on the scale, maybe set some performance goals in the gym, like a deadlift number or a bench or a pull-up. And I would also be mindful of who you spend your time around, and even on social media, what you're filling your feed with. Those things can impact your mentality.
Yeah, I think like body composition goals and performance goals don't have to, they're not like a black and white thing. A lot of the time they will overlap. So for example, if someone wants to build muscle, sometimes I would just set performance-based goals that would facilitate that, like increasing strength on certain lifts, rather than saying, okay, our goal is to build 2 pounds of muscle, because a lot of the time that means that people are going to be looking in the mirror a lot, taking their body weight a lot, which aren't necessarily bad things, but they might be paying a lot of attention to something which is a very, very slow process, rather than focusing on their performance in the gym and then letting physique changes kind of come along for the ride.
Those are just some things to think about. What are your thoughts?